Critical Blast, where pop culture gets blasted.
And welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Critical Blast podcast, Critical something or other. I don't know. We really haven't trademarked this thing yet. We just come out here and talk to you guys. We're here in the cavern as usual, and it's another night to talk about creating comics with some indie creators and some crowdfunding. And tonight we have Scott McCullough and Duncan Walker, the creative team behind Sidekick Island, which...
Hey, everyone.
I love Sidekick stories. So how you guys doing tonight?
Doing good, man.
Great, thank you.
Busy making comics all day?
All day long.
Probably should be more busy, but you know, it's not that bad.
Now, are you guys full-time creators, or is this something you kind of like have to work into your life schedule?
Yeah. So for me, you know, I'm active duty, so I end up, you know, I work at it. It's my third job between, you know, family, work, and then this. So Duncan's got a little different situation, but
yeah. I mean, I don't do this full time, but I am an independent contractor for a number of publishers that I used to work for. So, but in terms of making my own stuff, it's very small, narrow window every single day.
So do you like it when you get these 3 and 4 day weekends as an opportunity to say, oh, great, I can really focus on making comics this weekend?
Yeah, I can catch up because everyone else is enjoying family time.
Yeah, that's I like to think that, you know, I'm going to have a 3 day weekend. Well, I used to think I have a 3 day weekend and I'm going to sit here and write. And then, of course, the writing would get away from me and I would spend more time doing household things and chore lists.
Yeah,
of course,
yeah. Finding time to write. I mean, you got to just block out that time and just stick to it. It doesn't matter if there's laundry or, you know, a carpet that needs to be vacuumed or whatever. You should just block it out and just focus on that.
Yeah, or a kid who wants to play baseball, that kind of thing. I got my head
Right.
turned because I'm looking for something on the shelf here that I want to pull out later, but I may not find it. So that's not unusual. They're alphabetized in order, but the one thing I always ever want isn't there. We'll see how that works out. I'm sure it's there. I've seen it recently. So, Sidekick Island. How did this story come about? I mean, what was the chat that was going on that caused this?
Duncan, what you get?
Yeah. So, you know, Scott and I have known each other for a long time. And, you know, he has a couple successful Indiegogo campaigns under his belt now. And we were chatting, and I was just kind of finally kicking off the yoke of a full-time job and wanted to start focusing on some of my own personal projects. So we got to talking about some story ideas. Probably happened when I was helping you edit Door Kickers a little bit before it went to print, I think, if I'm tracking the time right. But we just started talking about, you know, what kind of campaigns and projects that we might be able to work on. And so I pitched him the idea of a ridiculous amount of sidekicks. We didn't have a number in mind at the time, but it was going to be a lot of them that are basically trapped on an island in Hunger Games style. They have to compete against each other, and the survivor gets to leave the island, presumably alive. Definitely scarred one way or the other. You know, hopefully they're not paraplegic or anything when they leave. But who knows? We haven't written that yet. And, you know, so the high concept is basically Hunger Games with sidekicks. And Scott wanted to add a layer of Survivor on there, the TV show, since he's a huge fan of that. And so we kind of like took Hunger Games and we took Survivor and we took an obnoxious amount of sidekicks and threw them all on an island so they can, you know, be ultra violent with each other.
Have that battle royale kind of thing going on, which
exactly. Battle royale is definitely the deeper reference that, you know, I think a lot of people in the geek community kind of get that, but you know, a lot of more broader folks, especially more younger, I don't think they've been exposed to that.
Yeah, Hunger Games is definitely going to be
The better reference,
ring a chord with them better. And in fact, Suzanne Collins has even said that Hunger Games came about because she fell asleep watching Survivor. Well, she said a reality game show, but come on, there's only one that does that.
There's only one, right? Well, the thing, for me, the original pitch, high concept for this was Snowflake and Space meet Lord of the Flies, and
okay, so that didn't take too long then, because that's not that old of a concept.
Well, yeah, but Lord of the Flies is a little esoteric for a lot of younger folks these days. But definitely for those of us within CG, we definitely see the hilarity of making Snowflake and Safe Space, much reviled concepts that have been floated out, make them fight each other to the death. So. One of our taglines is "There's no safe spaces on Sidekick Island."
I noticed that you've also managed to make a parody of how can I best put this? Ms. Riri Marvel.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's Big Fist Becky. Her hero name is actually Big Fist. But, everybody just calls her that she's such a Becky. So they just call her Becky, and she has to continuously, correct them. And, I would imagine in a tight knit superhero community, people have a kind of nicknames for each other based on their code names, because everybody chooses the cool code name that they want to be known by. But then their peers quickly identify them by derisive nicknames, and so definitely within this community, we're going to explore that.
Absolutely, and that's just real life. I mean, no one's friends ever decide to give you the nickname Gator. That's a name. That's a name that you pick for yourself, and then your friends mock you for the rest of your life for doing that.
Yeah, so like ring slinger, fleet feet.
The same way, right?
Yeah. I mean, and unless you literally are a Gator wrestler or somebody like that, but then you probably don't want to be called Gator at that point.
That's right.
Absolutely. Now I forgot what I was going to say. Don't get old, guys. It sucks.
It's too late.
Oh, I know. So, nope. You picked the cool name for yourself. I think I was thinking of the Big Bang Theory when Howard was trying to come up with Rocket Man for his astronaut name, and he ended up with Fruit Loop.
Yep.
Well, so
life.
So the just the cover, the thumbnail image that you chose for this, just that alone. I mean, there's several kind of homages or references or takeoffs of known heroes. So for instance, right next to, in this image, that we see in the background, right next to Becky is her Badlash, which is a female takeoff of Backlash, the Wildstorm character. Owlboy is definitely homage to Robin. So I mean, it's just like you just go down the roster and just kind of see almost, in some cases they're one-to-one comparisons. Yep. So we've got, those are the easy ones. Ultralass up there in the sky above Becky. That's really a Supergirl kind of takeoff.
Sure.
Yeah.
But then a lot of the other ones are just kind of general concepts that, Astonish, right, is not a takeoff per se, but she's just more of this kind of, cultural touch point to, now Duncan, why don't you talk about Astonish and Doom Bunny and a couple of these other ones that are less direct.
Oh, that's Doom Bunny? I thought that was Fragga Girl.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because it's a onesie and it's a bunny ears, and I'm like, okay, I get that one.
Yeah. So, Scott and I are just, we grew up during the Bronze Age, like late 70s and all through the 80s reading comic books. So, I mean, Uncanny X-Men, New Mutants, New Teen Titans, that kind of stuff is really influential on us. So when we decided to do this, first as a satire and a parody, one thing that we wanted to make sure was that we had plenty of stereotypes and analogs. You know, like when Warren Ellis wrote Authority. You know, all those characters were like Justice League of America analogs. So we're not looking to deconstruct the superhero universe or anything, but since it is a parody, we needed to have some similar characters. But also, you know, we didn't want a bunch of copycats running around either. So a lot of these have their own kind of take on them, or they're characters that we created whole cloth, because, you know, that's what we do. We create characters. So with that image that Scott was talking about, you know, the obvious similarities are there. Owlboy's definitely, you know, Dick Grayson Batman. From left to right at like 9 o'clock, the kid in green and yellow there, that's Perk, obviously a Kid Flash influenced. Going clockwise, we got Owlboy, and then Astonish. Astonish is kind of like a Wonder Girl. I mean, she's super strength, uber kind of character. So she's kind of like Wonder Girl, but not really.
You know, her personality really takes her in a different direction, and that's, you know, in a lot of these cases, I think that's where, you know, they may seem like on the surface, you know, an analog to another established character, but, you know, the personalities are really where they, you know, because you know, I think a lot of times, you know, sidekicks are tried to be, you know, they take themselves seriously. Well, I think a lot of our characters, you find that they're very vapid, and, you know, they get into the game for the wrong reasons and things like this. So, you know, and that kind of bears out, you know, when you are in a life and death situation. That's the kind of, you know, you really get to know who these people are. And, you know, that's how we basically get to say superheroes aren't anything special. A lot of times they're actually worse than regular people.
Right. And like regular people, some of them have personalities that could be successful in an environment like Sidekick Island, or they could just completely fall apart. And you don't know until you're basically in a war zone which personality type you have, right? So that's kind of one of the angles that we want to take, because, you know, obviously everything is so amped up because it's superheroes to begin with, and then you overlay the situation on top of them where it's kill or be killed, and any character flaws or strengths that they have are all going to emerge to the surface. So each one of these has their own flaws and strengths, and extra layers that we put on them.
She looks like she's got a little bit of a full of herself attitude there.
Oh, yeah.
Being represented.
Oh, totally. I mean, you would too if you were her, though, right? I mean,
well, true. Yeah.
You're gorgeous and super powered, and you're being groomed to be like the next big thing. So of course you're gonna have a bit of a chip on your shoulder. But how does that play out when teams are picked and people start murdering each other? You know. So that's Astonish, and you know, she's definitely seems to be a character that I personally gravitate towards. Right next to her in the bunny costume, that's Doom Bunny. And you know, she's just a fun character. Her power is in the pajamas. The pajamas are possessed with like an H.P. Lovecraft kind of Cthulhu kind of monster inside of it. You know, and the reveal for that is going to be kind of fun. I don't want to spoil too much on that. Scott, do you have anything to add to Doom Bunny? I feel like I'm already a spoiler.
Yeah, I'd say with her, you know, she is emblematic of several of these characters who are wholly original creations that are just, you know, you come up with just a funny idea that would work for the concept, but then the more you get to know the character, you're like, all right, there's more to this character. Now it's too bad we're gonna have to kill them, but
right.
You know,
after putting all that effort in, do you have any regrets over getting rid of some of the characters? Like, you know, thinking, you know, we could probably made a whole series of books out of this character if we hadn't killed it off.
Good writers can always write around that, though.
True.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, if you have a sheep farm, you don't name all your sheep, right? So it's kind of like that. You can only allow yourself to be invested into them so much because you know you're going to have to kill them. But at the same time, you want to have them enough of a personality and get the reader to care about them so that when they do meet their demise, it matters, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, some of them will cower in fear, but if the more you know about them, the more you'll, feel some sort of empathy with them while they're cowering in fear for their soon to be death. Versus, if somebody is completely, just a cardboard cutout, then it's like, oh, cower in fear all you want. It doesn't really matter, because ultimately I knew you were going to die anyway. So.
Exactly. That's why Beta Boy died first, because he was just an easy kill.
Data Boy? Yeah, he's that doesn't sound like he'd be useful on an island.
No,
Probably no Wi-Fi.
He can split into two
Oh, yeah.
versions of himself, but both versions are only 50% of his normal strength. So he's completely useless.
BAP 2 just back. Thanks, man.
So next to Doom Bunny here, the Supergirl analog we've got. We've mentioned her.
Yeah. And then continuing counterclockwise, we talked about Big Fist Becky. I kind of like her. She's kind of fun. She was actually one of the first 4 or 5 that I came up with, right, Scott? Wasn't she?
Yeah, she was early on. I mean, partially because we knew we wanted to do a takeoff of Miss Marvel, but I think she was the first of the kind of modern parodies that we created.
Yeah, so like the first 10 were clearly mostly, George Perez era Teen Titans, Big Fist Becky, and then a couple gender swapped versions of Wildstorm characters, I think was basically what we were working with to begin with. So Big Fist Becky was probably the first one of those that was a little bit more modern. And then continuing clockwise, next to her, we got Bad Lash. So like we said, she's kind of a gender swap on Wildstorm's Backlash. Next to her is a character by the name of Slay Bay, which is probably one of the more modern superhero names I ever came up with. Next to her is the purple and the pink one. That's a Vamp Kitty. And then we already talked about Perk. Vamp Kitty is kind of fun because for the cover, the first cover version that we did, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we asked for Doom Bunny to be on there.
Yeah, and this character was drawn as Doom Bunny, but then we decided we wanted to do something completely different with their costume.
That's right. Yeah, we didn't think that the costume design that we got back for Doom Bunny was really Doom Bunny. So I went back to the drawing board with some fresh reference, and then I gave the artist the go ahead to just go ahead and polish off the character formerly known as Doom Bunny, and we changed her name to Vamp Kitty. So she's just kind of like Tigra, but also like kind of like an imp from World of Warcraft, that kind of thing. And she might be into BDSM. I don't know if we can explore that since there's underage kids on that island, but that might be a thing that she's into.
I love how Doom Bunny's powers are in her pajamas, and it's a zip up onesie, and she intentionally, purposely leaves it unzipped all the way down.
She's trouble.
She's trouble. Bra.
She used to be a bad guy, but she joined a team of good teen sidekicks. So she's got her own little redemption story going on.
Got it. Cool. So I found what I was looking for on the bookshelves earlier, and I don't know how old you guys are. I think I might be a little older. I came up with came up through the Marv Wolfman era, George Perez era, just like you did, Duncan. In fact, I love your banner on your Twitter page. I would have followed you if I hadn't even found you this way.
Thank you so much.
Just for that. But Rick Veitch did a series a while back, an indie series called Brat Pack. Are you familiar with that?
I heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I got right here, and it was a very adult take on the whole sidekick industry thing. In fact, even the cover here, I have to keep it kind of put away in the house just because of the bulges and stuff. But his take on that was it was the there were analogs, but they were also kind of original. So you had the Midnight Mink, which was the campy Batman character, and Chippy, his sidekick. There was a Moon version of Wonder Woman who had Luna, the other 3 characters, and it was all the hell they were being put through by their mentors to not just be good crime fighters, but also just to fulfill their own sadistic little needs. And they were always replacement sidekicks because the other sidekicks would always get killed off.
RJ, who was the original publisher of that book?
The publisher on this one is King Hell, which I think was Rick Beach's own imprint. On the back here, it's King Hell and Tundra, and this is a second printing. And it's mature readers, so.
I'll have to check that out.
But they had to keep recruiting. They had a priest that would recruit them new sidekicks against his will. It was basically, they said, you have to do this kind of thing for us. And in fact, it even starts out with the sidekicks finding the mink mobile. I'll just show some of it off here. Why not? What the hell? And Dr. Blasphemy, the real big bad guy here, and they get blown to hell. That's it. That's the end of the Brat Pack, and you're only like 5 pages in. And then the rest of it is the new kids being recruited, being given to these people because all the main heroes have patents and trademarks, and they make money on the action figures in the comic books. and if you don't have the sidekick, you don't have the work anymore. But eventually they always have to end up killing the sidekicks because they get out of control or they learn too much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was originally published in the early 90s, right?
It was, yes. Yeah, it's old.
And the protagonist was also an analog of, I believe, Nightwing, or at least Robin.
Robin. Chippy. Chippy was his name.
Yeah.
Had the pouting lips and.
Yeah. So that's definitely a lot grimmer than what we're going to go. I mean, even though we're going to brutally murder people, but none of our sidekicks are actually like getting molested by their mentors. So we got that going for us.
Yeah. Now you said you got like 40 sidekicks on the island here. I can't imagine you named all 40 of them. Some of them are just.
I think it's 44.
More than 44 of them. So there's 44 on the island, but I by the time we started literally picking teams, because we divide all these guys up to fight in a round of teams, I think we had closer to 60. So so what you're showing there, RJ, isn't even all of them. Those are most of the ones that are in the first of the comic, but there's more.
Hey, RJ, share my screen.
I think I just did.
So
is that not yours? Okay.
Yeah. So this is kind of the largest version of all the characters that we have to date. Now, see, as you notice, some of the ones on that cover that we showed aren't even on this list. But Duncan, I'll let you kind of talk through. I mean, you had a hand in almost every one of these. I only helped with maybe a quarter of the character creations. Duncan really is the mastermind behind most of these characters themselves. So I'll let him talk through a lot of this.
Yeah, thanks. So Joel Ojeda, who's our penciler, he finally got tired of just trying to keep track of everyone in the script, so he drew everybody out. So this is more for his own reference than for our own. We didn't ask him to do this. But from left to right, a lot of these look like they're mostly analogs, but not all of them. So starting by the logo there and then moving our way to the right, we got Granite, who's basically made out of organic granite. So basically she's a Colossus kind of analog. Visor obviously is a Cyclops analog. Farron is a Wolverine analog. Cyboy, who's actually one of my favorites, is kind of like a Kid Omega. But he does a really cool thing with his psi powers where he can basically generate a variety of psionic familiars. So like little creatures that are basically psionic energy that do his bidding for him semi-autonomously. Okay. Which I don't think is something that, at least I've never seen that in the comic before. So I thought that was pretty freaking brilliant on my part. Next to Cyboy is kind of like our Iron Man character. We went a little more retro and BattleTech with her. Her name is Miss Mecha, although that's not the final design of the suit. Next to her is a little Snow. She's our generic, ice person. And then we got Doom Bunny, who just can't seem to zip up those pajamas.
Now she's got them falling off her shoulder. That's no way to fight.
She's 19. She's 19, so we're not going to get in trouble. And then we got Bumbles and Hornet, which are basically the versions that I came up with for Hawk and Dove, because we have a lot of Teen Titans analogs in here. So I thought if we went with Ant-Man and the Wasp kind of thing, but also threw in the more iconic DC characters that were members of the Teen Titans at one point. We tossed them in there just for fun.
Well, there were a lot of them. If you go all the way back to the Cardi Haney era and just count them all individually, there were a ton of Teen Titans to pull from.
There's so many of them. Yeah. So, there's just so many of them. It's wonderful. Beneath them is a character named Princess Proper. I don't want to reveal her power, but she's a little bit of a shithead. Don't let the smile fool you. Next to her is a character that actually has two names. She used to go by Polylass. Basically, she's a female version of Beast Boy. But like Beast Boy, she grew up and she changed her name. So Beast Boy became Changeling. She wants to be called Morphling. But teenagers are dicks, so they keep calling her Polylass, even though it makes her mad. So there's that.
I hate that they changed Beast Boy back to Beast Boy, by the way.
And if one of the reasons why they don't like the name she doesn't like the name Polylass is because at some point she got old enough to where some of the guys in her community were calling her Polyass.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So and that is definitely going to come into it as well.
Yeah. Besides her, you got Ultra Lass and Ultra Lad. They're twins. They're basically Supergirl and Superboy. But what we did with them is kind of the reverse of what North Star and Aurora from Alpha Flight do. They're really, well, maybe not the reverse, but they're really powerful when they're in close proximity. But if you separate them, their powers dwindle significantly, which is a bit of a reveal. But I had to do something because we couldn't have two Superman level characters on a deserted island and expect things to be fair for anybody. So we immediately separated them. Joel drew in Ultra Mom for some reason. She's not in the book though. And then he drew in this Kung Fu guy or this karate guy down here in the bottom right, who's probably the only character that's not an actual character. That was just like a starting doodle. Beside him is Invisigal, so invisible woman, but a girl. The Spooge is a complicated character. Basically, I've been obsessed with the Shmoo, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, and Gleep and Glorp.
Generation-long pop culture icon that pops up every 20 or 30 years like it's something new. And also, like on Herculoids, they used a design of the Shmoo. They had a couple characters like that. So he's basically our little amorphous kind of bag of goo that this also happens to be sentient. And we got some fun things in mind in store for him that I don't want to reveal just yet. But his name's the Spooge. How are you going to hate that? And then we got Teen Void, who's kind of like the Spot from Spider-Man. He's just not very good at using his powers, Next to Teen Void is Teen Trigger. His guns like morph out of his hands, and he's really hot-tempered, super obvious 90s reference. Beta Boy is beside him. He dies on page 6, I think. He dies quick, just to set an example. Next to him is Kid Occult, which is basically Detective Occult. or John Constantine, that kind of vibe, but as a teenager. Slow-mo, for some reason, turned into some type of kung fu kind of character, but basically his power is the reverse of Perk's. So Perk speeds everything up. Slow-mo counters that by slowing everything down. And then Kid Dragon is kind of like, what's that dragon character from Power Pack, if you remember, like the first 20 issues of that? The android dragon that kept popping up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it doesn't even matter. That's the whole point. Yeah. That's kind of the joke. It doesn't even matter what.
I was thinking Savage Dragon. But...
was. If that stupid character that no one remembers the name of had a sidekick, it would be Kid Dragon.
Very, very cool. So I'm thinking, a lot of Secret Wars while you're going through this whole list of all these characters that got to fight each other back in the Marvel days. And one of the things that happened in the Secret Wars issue was, the Beyonder brought good guys and bad guys of varying levels, but on the bad guy side, they had Galactus.
Right.
And while everybody's fighting around Galactus, it's like, I'll do the one thing that I do best. I will just, destroy this entire planet. So do you have anybody on the in the ensemble who's got that sort of a power level that could just say, you know what, screw y'all, I'm not going to help any of you. I'm going to be the last one here because there won't be anything left but me.
So not that we're going to reveal. There's no one that we created that is that powerful. The most powerful characters that we have are basically the Ultra Twins. Again, they're basically Supergirl and Superboy. So that's pretty outsized power in and of itself. But like you, my thoughts immediately turned to those first few issues of Secret Wars where everyone was just kind of there and they were kind of like divvied up naturally by teams.
Yeah.
So you'll see that as we start scrolling through the campaign page 4 and 6 is basically my version of that, but instead of them standing around, whatever battle zone that those heroes happen to be in Secret Wars. And I'm so old, I remember a time when we didn't know those were called battle zones, but they are, I guess. But that's kind of the take that we took, was to basically have them wake up kind of amongst their own teams if they came from teams, and they're just kind of eyeballing each other, wondering why the heck they're all waking up there on the sandy beach of a deserted island. So that's definitely a huge nod to Secret Wars.
But just to kind of backtrack, we were talking about power levels and things like that, right? So if you were there with your very powerful friend that you train with all the time, and you're immediately pit against them in some manner, and your life depended on it, all of a sudden you'd start remembering all those times in training where you saw a hole in them, whether it, all right, ultra last and ultra lad, we need to make sure they're separated, or he won't punch a girl, right? So take advantage of that. He will hesitate before he punches you in the face, type thing. So that there's always those kind of holes in our personalities that give other people advantages. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that before I have to now go, because I'm being called in a different direction. So
gotcha. Take care,
guys. I appreciate your time. Yep.
Well, thanks for putting this together, Scott.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, I'll talk to you guys later.
Sounds good.
Soon.
Yep. Later.
Everybody in the chat, the link to Sidekick Island, by the way, is in the description. So if you are interested in following the Indiegogo campaign, or better yet, contributing to it, go down there and hit that link. While I've got it up here, I'm going to go ahead and play the video, because I just recently learned how to do that in live streams, and I'm still kind of liking it.
Welcome to Sidekick Island. 44 superhero sidekicks enter, but only one will survive the bloody island competition. It's a Hunger Games style battle royale in this deadly love letter to Silver and Bronze Age superheroes. Help us bring this 48-page perfect bound graphic novel to life so we can brutally kill these sidekicks. There will be no safe spaces. Created by the writing team of Scott McCullough and Duncan Walker, with art by Joel Death of Superman Ojeda and Milan G.I. Joe Parvanoff, with letters by Eric Cyberfrog Weathers. Support the campaign today.
What do you think?
Available only on Indiegogo. We hope you survive the experience.
I think it's got pause in the middle.
Welcome.
It's awkward.
I knew it was coming, and I still screwed it up.
Well, it's okay. I watched it once before myself, and I'm like, what happened here? Why is it doing that?
Yeah, it's probably a couple seconds longer than it should have been.
Interesting here. I'm going to check it. Scott, do you want back in?
Yeah. It was a false alarm.
Okay. I was like, am I seeing an after image? Did it not clear the cache? And then it moved. I'm like, okay, well, Scott is back. Welcome back, Scott.
Yeah. I'll stick around as long as I can. I thought I was getting called, but apparently somebody else was getting yelled at, and I thought it was for me.
Well, I was just getting ready to start looking over the tiers here and directing the viewers to the page. By the way, you guys have worked on other stuff before this. I mean, I think, did you both work on Peregrine, or Scott, was that just yours?
So that's just me. I'm co-creator of Peregrine with the guys over at Graded Point 5, and then I wrote the script. And then Door Kickers was all me, but Duncan came in after I'd finished up that book and helped me with some edit assists.
Okay, and Duncan, what have you done before this?
So, I spent the last 30 years working mostly outside the comic industry, in publishing and in board games, mostly on the business development and licensing side of things, some production management. So a lot of lateral experience, but this is my first attempt at making a comic book.
It's very cool, though, but you're bringing in some much needed business knowledge, I think, as far as how the industry works, because
I try
coming in as being a writer or being an artist, you sort of been a little bit more into the paperwork, into the weeds with how properties.
Looking at book budgets and whatnot. I mean, it's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of similar lateral experience. But I've done a fair amount of short story and novel writing, but this is my first. So I've done a lot of creative things on my own, but it took me getting out of the business side finally as a day job in order to free up enough time to be able to do something like this. So, I try to bring what I can to the table, but, Indiegogo, it's its own unique ecosystem, as is every crowdfunding platform.
It really is.
So I have to lean on Scott a lot to make sure what I'm doing makes sense.
Yeah, I can't imagine trying to turn something like Sidekick Island into a franchise and having to pay for the trademark on 44 brand new characters all at once.
Well, you don't do it all at once. I mean, just a generic TM is free. Number one, it's the registered trademark that you got to pay for. So but that's a battle for another day.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things that was really important was when we first came together on this, and this is, I'm not necessarily pushing this narrative, but at the same time, I think it's a unique thing that Duncan and I have kind of encountered. So Duncan comes, to this from a different point of view than, say, a lot of us in CG, because, the CG kind of hardcore element is generally of the right, we all kind of I wouldn't say all of us, but definitely the large majority are kind of like, we felt like, the mainstream comic book industry was drifting away to the left, and it didn't speak to us anymore, just like what, they claim with a lot of this, there's no representation for them. Well, we may have been represented back in the, people on the right may felt represented back in the 90s and the 80s, but nowadays not so much. So Comicscape was really kind of a refuge for that kind of But Duncan really comes to this from the opposite. He's a guy from he's a little left to center, right? And so that being said, despite our political differences, we have been friends for a lot of years. Now we've had plenty of discussions where we just had to agree to disagree, but ultimately coming into CG, Duncan was a little bit aware of CG, but mostly from the standpoint of like, beware, because he read a lot of the articles, and he had heard a lot of things from social media, specifically on Facebook, where there was just like the word CG comes up as a bad word. Some people actually put the asterisks in the CG not to hide the fact that they're talking about CG from CG, but because they're afraid they're going to get like their post deleted, because they think if you put CG Comicsgate in the post, it's going to be deleted because it's an alt-right post or something like this. So
the anti-CG side has been very, very effective at propagating that story.
Yeah, no, that's right. And and so he came at this from the standpoint of like, listen, Scott, I'm willing to work with you, and I'm willing to do this book, but I don't know about CG. I really need to kind of look a little further into this, because I have friends that have different opinions about CG, because while he hasn't been in the comic industry, he knows some industry people, and he has been a comic book fan, like he's as long as any of us. And so his journey to where he has experienced what we go through in CG, and I don't want to speak for you, Duncan, but I mean, clearly he has embraced a lot of the tenets of what we stand for here in CG. And while he may not have a CG hashtag in his Twitter description, he's just as CG as everybody else. And I always contend that people can be CG without ever even admitting that they're CG,
Yeah. When I talked with Graham Nolan last week, we had him on the show, and I asked him about him being CG. He said that his way of approaching it was that he embraces everything that Comicsgate officially stands for, but he refuses to let the lower elements of any group define who he is as a person.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, I'm not CG any more than I am a member of a political party, and it's just the thing that drives me nuts is, I mean, there's a number of things that drive me nuts, but one thing that really annoys me is how politics seems to be, and the culture war specifically, seems to be tearing the comic book industry apart. And that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, if Scott and I can be friends for going on 25 years now, and make things and work together and be in business together, then why can't other people, and then turning your nose from the Comicsgate consumer doesn't seem to make any sense to me either, because they clearly like comic books. They're clearly willing to spend perfectly good money on some high quality product. Why would you tune your nose to that because you don't like who they voted for? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much of that is industry driven rather than personally driven, because I'll just say that I'm betting there's going to be a lot more professionals that come out more friendly to the CG side of things now that there's not so much of an industry to be fired from anymore.
I mean, maybe, but most of those people don't have any business sense. I mean, first of all, we're talking about the people that killed the mainstream comic book industry. Of course, they don't have any business sense. But yeah, they're going to be more open to all different types of consumers once they no longer have $10, $20, $30,000 a year in DC royalties coming their way, because DC, fun fact to everybody that's worked in the industry for decades now that gets royalties from Marvel or DC, once Warner Brothers and eventually Disney license those books out, they don't have to pay royalties anymore.
Somebody else.
They don't have to pay royalties to those people. If they elect to, that is something that we'll wait and see. But they're not legally required to pay royalties on licensed properties. And if they're licensing out, there is no royalties for Graham Nolan on Bane, for instance, if IDW is publishing Bane, Batman with Bane in it. So I'm glad that Graham and Art Thibert and Guy and Shane Davis, they came over to the Indiegogo side of things to get their own stuff that they fully control the rights to, and take charge of their destiny. Because just look at what DC just did to Dan DiDio and Bob Harris. No one's been more loyal to DC than Bob Harris over the last 10 or 15 years. After he got fired from Marvel, he schmucked around in the trade paperback collections department for almost 10 years before they give him another chance as editor-in-chief. And then, lo and behold, a new corporate master comes along. They look at DC's books, see they clearly doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense to have two publishers that are also acting as editors-in-chiefs. An editor-in-chief that's not allowed to act as editor-in-chief, like Bob Harris never was allowed to perform that function, et cetera, et cetera. And so the long story short, the guys made a career out of, being the top editor at comic book companies. They both summarily canned his ass, both of them. So what could he have done if he would have done, the Graham Nolan or, Shane Davis or Ethan Von Sciver model and took an entrepreneurial control over his own life? He wouldn't be worrying about how he's going to pay to get his kids, his twins through college right now.
DC editorial, and for that matter, I think Marvel editorial is probably a mirror image of it. It's been a shambles for the last decade, and it shows in the stories, and the things that get into the stories, and the way that the cohesiveness of the various titles no longer exists. We bitched about these event books forever since Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's like, why did I pick up this DC Comics Presents? Because it got Crisis on the banner. Well, it had Red Sky, so it's not really important. We still bought it. But lately, and my latest example is always Doomsday Clock. It's like Doomsday Clock was, for all intents and purposes, an event title, or it was supposed to be. And DC editorial just started falling apart right after that book started. And something that, under Dick Giordano and Denny O'Neil would have had a Doomsday Clock imprint above every major masthead that DC had produced and had story elements falling over into it, turned out into some Elseworlds kind of thing that didn't have any impact on the DC universe at all.
And that's just because management couldn't get their shit together. It was just Dan and Bob Harris were always at loggerheads. I don't know how many stories I've heard about how they would just sit in the office and yell at each other all day long. But it's, it wasn't Dan's job as a publisher, technically a co-publisher, because you need two of them, I guess, it wasn't Dan's job to argue editorial with Bob Harris. It was Bob Harris's job to get the books done on time and make them good. He was never given that opportunity because Dan DiDio micromanaged the shit out of him. And then, but it was Dan's job to go find more sales elsewhere. That's what a publisher's job is. Find business opportunities and sales opportunities outside the direct market.
It took Dan DiDio and Jim Lee working together.
He was micromanaging his editors.
Yeah.
It
took Dan DiDio and Jim Lee working together to not even accomplish as much as Jeanette Kahn did.
Yeah, don't forget Diane Nielsen, who seems to be a wonderful person. She was top brass, right up there with Jeff Johns and Hank Canals, who was the senior VP of publishing strategy, something or another. How many leaders do you need running an organization that's pumping out 80 books a month? You certainly don't need 10 senior executives of various titles. That's $1 million a year right there, bare minimum, just in their salary.
Yeah, that's the paring down has been a long time coming. I'm talking about paring down in the management.
What Bob Harris could do, just so I could figure out whether or not he was good at his job or not, because he never was allowed to do his job at DC, because Dan was doing it or trying to.
So RJ, now that you've heard Duncan on one of his rants, like he's not even a comics insider. He's just an astute, a consumer of comics news. And so I'm pushing him to start his own YouTube channel. I think he already has started it. That's right. You already have started it. I'm trying to get him to start publishing videos on some of the news of the day, because he definitely has a good take on it, and it comes from a more of a business standpoint than if I were to talk about comics news, I would come at it from a creative standpoint or a political or something like that. But I definitely love hearing Duncan's insight on this stuff. So because the thing I always admire are people who can just read the news, that it's available to all of us, and then kind of read between the lines and and put two and two together. So
yeah, somebody who knows not just of the names, but knows the people behind the names and what they do, and how things are actually going on in the offices. That's something that
Well, and just because Duncan didn't work in the comic book industry doesn't mean he hasn't had contact with these people, through various
exactly.
things.
Yeah. No, I've been around for a long time in publishing, and Manhattan's not that big of an island. In licensing expo, everybody goes to the licensing expos and bumps elbows. So I'm familiar with a lot of these people. I've had drinks with some of them and whatnot, but I prefer to keep my distance, because I want to I just want to make cool stuff, and I don't want to.
Right.
I also don't want to put myself in a position where I have to screen what I'm trying to say, because for political reasons,
Sure.
like office politics reasons, not ideological reasons.
Yeah, stay pure and unaffected by all that, so you can stay free.
And that comes back to the more kind of a more of a CG topic. And I try not to get too much into the internal workings and politics of CG and the back and forth, just because it doesn't help sell my books. The latest drama with War Campaign or one of these other factions or whatever, I don't really get into that, because I know a lot of guys in War Campaign that buy my books, and I'm not here to I have no idea. And you got to really get involved to know what's what, and even then, unless you're in those DM chats or whatever, you really don't know what's what.
That's right.
So from the standpoint of that, I have to remain agnostic when it comes to these conflicts and internal to CG. Nice thing is that within the last couple months, it seems like a lot of that's died down. So that's been good. People are behaving, and they're respecting each other, and it's always easy to kind of get along with everybody when everybody's respecting everybody.
Yeah, you've got some of the last diehard true believers that are still kicking it up out there, but it's the dinosaur age has long gone, and it'll catch up with them soon enough, and it'll be back to just being people making books again. Speaking of making books, I've had this page up here, and I had to start scrolling down the tiers on it.
Yeah,
we got distracted. Sorry.
That's okay. That's a good distraction. We should get you and Perch on sometime, Duncan, and I bet we could both. We could all have a really good in-depth discussion on the industry, as opposed to.
Yeah, I would love that. I've seen a little bit of Perch's work, and I think he's a smart guy.
So this is the collector's bundle. I'm guessing this is the whole kit and caboodle package right here.
Yeah, this is the one. If somebody has money to spend and wants to know which one we recommend, this is it. So you pretty much get one of everything, and to include whatever perks that would come as stretch goals. But you get 2 books. You get a lunchbox, which is a kind of a unique feature of our campaign. You get a poster, and then you get 1 packet of the trading cards. Somebody had mentioned booster pack. I mean, we probably shouldn't use the word booster pack. It's not a game, but we're just everybody's familiar with those kind of Magic the Gathering booster packs. That's what we're trying to source, to get the cards in kind of a package, and then so you got to open the package.
Yeah, we just need to get pricing on foil packs, and then we'll be good to go. I'm just waiting for a couple of my old vendors to get back to me.
So all the cards are in the pack, though. It's not like a random assortment.
Right. Well, that's the idea. And, even if we have to go El Cheapo because, maybe we don't fund as high as we would like, there's going to be 44 cards, and if you get pack A, all pack A's are going to be the same, even if it comes in a Ziploc lunch bag, Wanger might do, rather than a foil pack. It'll still be kind of like pack A is pack A, and pack A, they're all the same, and then pack B, pack C, and pack D.
Right.
All right, very cool. You guys are the second people I've talked to have done the lunchbox thing, which I think is a really cool perk. Mike Barron was on the other night talking Florida Man again, and his Florida Man campaign has a lunchbox in it.
Okay. So I think there's one other out there that has a lunchbox too. We were definitely not the first to do it, but I was
yet?
I have not. I was not aware of anybody who was doing a lunchbox before we did it. So we did it kind of uniquely, but then we have subsequently found that other people have done lunchboxes. So now based on my research and the vendor that we're going through, this won't be like a, embossed, full, cover type on the lunchbox. It'll be printed on a flat. But I think it'll still be a very cool product, and I'm looking forward to getting it out there.
Yeah, they look great. I mean, we're just using a promotion company that has a variety of merchandise you could slap logos on and whatnot. But they look great. I have some from some other projects that I worked on with prints and logos and etc. And they're pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, most people just go with the sticker mule stickers and the magnets and stuff. Like even we do the sticker mule thing, and
that
reminds me it's time to briefly shill the 3-inch holofoil stickers here.
I got my sticker mule stickers.
All right.
Yeah, they're great.
My son was picking these up to me the other day. He said, because you always get one of these with your package.
Did you get the bottle of hot sauce too?
I did not get the bottle of hot sauce. I haven't ordered that yet. I've gotten the the other sticker mule sticker and the coasters they always send. My son's like, Dad, is that supposed to be a donkey? I'm like, yeah, why? He's like, because it looks like
you mean this
like a
right
happy,
here?
Yeah. So it looks like a happy Chinese guy.
Yeah. Nice. You racist. I can't believe you.
I know it. He's 12. And you're gonna have to put him in
the other thing that we're gonna include in, probably, as I think it's on one of our stretch goals, is like a bookmark. So I was really happy with how my door kickers bookmarks came out. So
those are nice.
Yeah, it turned out really nice, and so we'll probably have those available. And then I don't think we put stickers on there. Yeah, you went with the glossy. I went with the matte.
I found, I don't even know who I found, but the people who did our book cover for our last book, The Devil You Know, which is Everything's in Arm's Reach. It's called a mess. I called it a system. They said, hey, for an extra $10 on our contract here, we can give you a banner and a bookmark. And what they meant was the artwork for a banner and the artwork for a bookmark.
We could do refrigerator magnets.
Yeah,
those are cool too. Sticker Mule will do those too for you.
They print up just like stickers, and you just cut them.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've.
Part of me wants to contract 6 a.m. Comics to do one of his little chibi. Can't you imagine like 40 members, like just you get a sticker like this big with all 44 members of the Sidekick Island crew, just.
That would be cool.
That'd be awesome.
And of course, once you've ordered anything from Sticker Mule, you start getting ads from them all the time. Say, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that.
Oh yeah.
So, I got suckered into the keychain and the
that's
and the stick.
But what's crazy is that you can do these really small print runs through them for like $25.
Yeah, and if you can't afford not to do it.
Yeah.
Let me bring the page back up here because I want to take a look at these other perks before we got off here. So this is cover A. This is just the book, $25, 48 pages, signed, which, you can't just go to your LCS and get that.
Now, as of right now, that'd only be signed by Duncan. But I won't be able to sign that because I'll be in Korea when this gets published. But there's one further down. There's one further down that we'll address that.
And this is the same thing with cover B.
Right.
And then, of course, both covers are $45. And then we start to see the retro superhero lunchbox. This is cover A with the lunchbox. I'm betting this one's going to be cover B with something.
Nope.
Oh, you
just
can be
cover.
drawn in.
Yeah. So we've noted a couple errors, and there's an error on this perk, and because nobody's backed it, we should probably be changing it tonight. But we indicate that it is both a cover cameo, but also an interior. It's an interior cameo, not a cover cameo.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just you just get drawn into the interior, not the cover.
Right. And
I
you will be killed if you get drawn in.
absolutely
So does this also mean that you're not going to be drawn in as Visor?
beta boy. No, that's no. I just really enjoyed playing with that piece of art with his blown up head. No, you'll definitely be somebody else.
All right.
So just part of the story, the initial kind of kickoff of this, you only have about 30 sidekicks, but there's an insert. There's like a story event that occurs later on in the second act, where they insert more sidekicks into it. So you would probably be one of those inserted sidekicks.
Gotcha. This is cover A with the signature plate.
Yeah, so it's the entire crew. So that would be the artist, the colorist, the letterist. So the letterer is Eric Weathers, Milan Parvanov. Is that right, Duncan? Am I
Yep,
saying that
that's
right? Parvanov. I finally said his name right on the air. And then Joel Ojeda. Those guys would all sign it. And then he'd send it to me. I'd sign it. Duncan would sign it, and probably the cover artist would sign it as well.
Very nice. I always like getting signatures on things. Sold more signatures than I've kept, though, unfortunately. Writership. Oh, you get a typewriter with this one. No, wait, that's so this is to help us craft 6 pages of Sidekick Island massacre at a key plot point. Oh, so they're going to help plot the story.
Yeah. So the idea is that, like on a TV show, the plot of the TV show is bandied about the writer's room, and then individual writers go off and write their episodes. That's the similar idea is that we would sit down with our backers who choose this perk, and we have a couple kind of decision points we need to figure out, and we even have the ability to, for some character input on some of these kind of insert characters that we were talking about. So what they would be able to partake fully in that session, and then they would also get a story credit if they back that as well.
That's a cool thing to get. And you got 3 opportunities for this to happen.
Yep.
All right. Well, somebody's going to jump on that because credit is a cool thing to have. A lot of people have their name written in the back of a book for donating a certain level.
Now, you would actually be able to put this on your resume as a story credit for this book.
Yeah. We'll list you in the credits, but it's only going to be like 2 or 3 pages. It's we're not really asking for. We just want to like have some fun and kind of like take the participatory nature of crowd.
But the thing that I always mention, right, is a good idea is where you find it. And if somebody were to come into this with a really good idea and a good understanding of what me and Duncan are trying to do with the story, and they're able to kind of pitch us something, if it's good, we'll take it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I love good ideas.
I like the bad ideas. No.
Sometimes I like them too.
Hey,
broken clocks are right twice a day.
Exactly.
That's right.
And our last one here is a $300 one, where you're basically going to give away almost 20 pages of the original art over.
Yeah. Single pages, splash pages. There's going to be a ton of double page spreads as well.
First come, first serve. If you jump on this now, then if you want a double page spread, then that's what you get. So I mean, if this blows up, one day you could find yourself thinking about getting it and then coming back and like realize that you're 6th or 7th in line, and you're probably not going to get one of those double page spreads.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so you've been at this for about 15 days, I'm guessing, 14 days.
Yeah, we're just shy of 2 weeks.
Okay. And you're at 22% of goal. I don't know if that's on track for funding or not. I don't really.
We probably started a little early, not giving ourselves enough kind of build up prior. But part of the timing is because I'm moving, and we wanted to get this at least the first 30 days done before I moved.
Yeah.
And then the other part is, there were a lot of contributing factors, but ultimately, we probably should have done more marketing.
The two big ones were you were moving, and we had Labor Day creeping up on us.
Yeah.
We didn't want
after
to too close to Labor Day. So we shoved it out. Probably, I would have liked at least 2 more weeks just to get the newsletter a little bit bigger, and to introduce me to Twitter a little bit. I never even had a Twitter account until
no wonder you sound so sane.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right.
That's why I don't like to deal with the political and culture war side of things. I don't want to see people tweet about how you shouldn't say the word German because it's too gendered. That makes me want to punch things.
Give him a year, Scott. He'll be talking about soy and gamma and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
exactly right. That's exactly right.
On Twitter and Facebook, so I figured I would avoid that.
Duncan actually had an encounter in his real life with those types of folks. So that was one of the, he and I were talking about I was trying to get him over into CG probably about the beginning of the year. And I just remember having some conversations with him like, dude, you need to just pack it in and just come on over here and enjoy the fun. And the interesting thing is that now that he's kind of embraced a lot of the people within CG and a lot of the tenants within CG, he's shocked at both the engagement that we're receiving, but also just the nice, sane,
It's the supportiveness, and I don't see the level of support happening on the quote unquote mainstream side of things.
All tearing, everybody's trying to. It's the crabs in the bucket.
Kissing up to someone who already has a career. I don't see that kind of supportiveness happening with other people's independent projects.
CG is interacting with other comic book buyers who want to buy comic books, and the mainstream is interacting with people telling them how to make the comic books that they're not going to buy in the first place.
That's exactly
that sounds right. It sounds right.
So,
boycott doesn't work if the people boycotting don't buy the product in the first place.
It's the same people that want Bernie Sanders to win the Democratic nomination but didn't bother to show up on Super Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to bitch about him not being the candidate of their choice all the way up past Election Day, but they didn't show up when it actually mattered, Super Tuesday. So why cater to them? They're just dickheads.
Yep. I've seen this one guy show up in a couple of pictures, and I don't think he's gotten referenced yet. Down here in the bottom right of the screen, looks like he's got a graduation cap on and a monocle.
Yeah. So he's actually one of the people that helped inspire this entire story. Like Scott suggested, not that long ago, I had an encounter with what you guys would refer to as SJWs. There were some interns, and some of them were some younger staff members of the company that I used to work at, and they were just horrible people. Everything was a problem. Everything was an issue. You couldn't make a critique about a female character's costume or design or whatever with it not being sexism, or they were up in arms about Wonder Woman's latest costume. I'm like, you little weirdos are so sex positive and all about polyamory and whatnot. If you actually look into the history of the person that created Wonder Woman, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with what his actual intentions were for that character.
Yeah.
But you're so busy being knee-jerk overreactive about everything. I guess you can't bother to read a wiki entry. I don't know. So after dealing with a couple of knuckleheads like that, I created a couple of characters semi-based off of them, and one of them is this kid with the graduation cap. His name is Professor Genius Boy, and he thinks he knows everything, even though he's only like a 20-year-old dipshit. And, he thinks that he's automatically in charge of everything, and he's unpleasantly surprised when team leaders are picked on Sidekick Island, and he's not in that roster of team leaders. He's very upset about that, but he's basically the walking epitome of all the people that start their sentences with actually.
I was going to say he probably starts every sentence with actually. So I could just see it in his little smug expression there. So
yeah, he needs to be punched. He's got a punching face for sure.
Very cool. All right, so this is I'm gonna bet that you're probably gonna extend it another 30 days because I think they all do.
Seems about right.
Yeah, we'll definitely take advantage of the algorithm that with IGG, going to the updating right at the last 12 hours.
Yeah, and you got a $10,000 goal here, which is that's a hefty goal to hit, but you're 2,200 there already. You're 22% of the way.
Well, the interesting thing is we had a great hit on the first day, but we've had really steady work since then. And just today we've had 3 backers just today before coming on your show, and I think we had another one or maybe even 2 more.
It went up $35 since the show started.
So we've had at least one since your show started. And the interesting thing, I have really door kickers and Peregrine to look at, and the bigger something is, the more just kind of single book backers you have. But with this one, if you look down at our backers count, like if you look at the first perk here, the $80 one, right? I mean, we got 7, so that's skewing our average amount back by a considerable amount. I mean, it's clearly something that people want to have, versus having just a ton of people come in at the lower price perks. So we've been really happy. We clearly, there is a segment within CG that we are resonating with. Everybody has been very positive as far as the concept goes. They like the characters, they like the products. So we just really look forward to keeping this train rolling. We'll make that backing goal, I'm sure of it. And it's important that we make that backing goal, because unlike a lot of other creators, where you have literally the artist is the guy doing the campaign, we have to pay for that art. In order for that art to get made, we have to pay for it. And so, Duncan and I, we're not made of money. So we literally need this, we need that $10,000 to make this book work. So,
yeah. And you're already in the hole for some of that 10,000 because you had to pay for the art that we already are seeing.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
All right. And, I bring that up every time that we have a campaign on where it's just the writer, to remind people that, sometimes if it's an artist writer team, your starting goal will be like $1,000 or $500 even. I've seen some, because they're doing all the work. There's no pay, and it's all profit above some.
You're just paying for printing. If you're writing and doing the art yourself, you're just paying for printing at that point.
Exactly. But when you are the writer, and you have to hire out an artist who's not invested in the profits of it. He just wants to be paid up front for handing you artwork. That's gonna cost you.
Yeah, it definitely adds to the funding levels that we need to keep in mind. But fortunately, we saved probably a lot of time and money just since I was able to do a lot of the graphic designs that we're looking at for the campaign page. So it's we've cut corners where we can. And Scott and I both have a fairly broad skill set when it comes to graphic design and whatnot. So. So we kind of lucked out on that front, but yeah, artists need to get paid, and
sure.
And hopefully we fund at 10K, and I think we got our first artist bonus set up for 25K. The artists all get a fairly decent bonus So if,
Now-
you know, if we extend this thing, which it looks like we're going to do, but at the end of that extension, you know, if we can hit that 25K mark, I just took that stretch goal down, but the 25K mark is actually a bonus that goes out to the art team. So everybody that's creatively working on the book, except for Scott and I.
Now, when you have a tier where the artists are going to get a bonus, do you find that actually motivates the artists to promote the book?
Yeah, well, so
Sure negotiated the hell out of what the bonus would be, so I would hope that so I hope that they would then be motivated to promote it after those grueling negotiations.
well, yeah, I think a great example is Millen has really been out there retweeting and liking things, and that's really all we can ask for. I mean, we want them to bring to reach out to their fans and say, hey, listen, I'm working on this project, I'm proud of it, and I hope you guys, if you like my work, will buy it. I mean, that's really all we ask for. They don't have to become one-man marketing machines. That's right. Just letting the people that know that you're working on something. I think that's critical to being part of the team,
Yeah, whether it's a crowdfunding thing or not. I mean, if you're a creator that's putting something out into the world, everything is just there's so many options out there now that if you're not helping promote the thing that you're working on, chances are that thing's not going to be a thing for very long, you know? So whether it's a crowdfunding thing or not, it really behooves you to get out there and hustle a little bit on the awareness of whether something exists or not.
Right. So with this thing funding through the end of October, I'm guessing that you'd be looking at sort of a fulfillment sometime March.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, we put October of next year as the fulfillment date, but we'd rather ship early and surprise everyone than ship late, happily surprise everyone and ship late and
disappoint anyway.
And disappoint 20, 30, 40% of our backers. Cause Scott and I have a lot of plans. I mean, the second Door Kickers is going to be coming out in the first spring. And I've got a lifetime of these properties like Sidekick Island just sitting on my hard drive waiting to happen. And Scott's the same way. He has dozens of ideas. So we want to make our consumers happy on this project because we have a lot more that we want to do, not just with Sidekick Island, although Sidekick Island, the return absolutely needs to happen.
The return from the dead.
Right.
Island of the living sidekicks.
Yeah. Some paraplegics coming back in like battle armor to get their final licks in. But but we can't do that without the backers feeling like we take care of them every single campaign. Mm-hmm. So we extended that out there. The official fulfillment date is October of next year.
Now that's a year and a month away. Do you think that's giving people pause for investing in the project? Because it's be like, I'll forget about it in 4 months when I've given money to things. I go to my payment page sometimes to see what I've contributed to and what I've referred. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm still expecting that someday.
Yeah, I've done that too. That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that. I wouldn't think so. I mean, there's plenty of campaigns out there that. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've backed a significant number of CG projects, and you'd be surprised. I mean, mainstream products within CG, take 9 months, 10 months, the famous EVS was 1.5 years on his, on Blood Honey. I mean, there's reasons why this kind of stuff happens. Yeah. Mostly it deals with people, first-time campaigns. People just don't know what they need to do these campaigns. So there's a lot of discovery learning that goes into it. I know that happened with Door Kickers. I mean, I would have sworn a stack of Bibles that I would have shipped in February, but I ended up shipping in, July. I started receiving the books in late July, and I shipped in August. I mean, that is a year and a month from when I started the campaign. I started the campaign for Door Kickers on July 28th of last year.
Right.
Yeah, I guess maybe I've seen the ones fulfill faster when, again, it's the artist is part of the team and they've already got most of the book done.
Well,
before
like
they
Adam
start
Post is,
funding.
Adam Post is a good example, right? I mean, he paid for his book up front. He had it completely finished before he offered it up, for funding. He funded it, basically put his money back in his pocket,
Right.
and then was able to immediately fulfill. So within months of the end of the campaign, he was had books in people's, and then that was his idea. And I think your boy Zach's done the same thing, where he basically doesn't, he's got something mostly in the can by the time he actually offers it for for offer on Indiegogo. So, I mean, I think ideally that's where I'd like to get, especially for things like door kickers. I'd like to make door kickers at least once a year, but maybe even twice a year type of book, right? And so, in order to do that, I would love to take the money from the last one and then roll it into the next one, so that I can get, rather than having to fund at say $10,000 in order to pay for the art, I'm able to pay for that, $5,000 worth of yard out of the last campaign. So, and
start pre-funding things with the last funding.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and that's the direction that you should be going into if this crowdfunding thing is your business model. Everything shouldn't be contingent on your funding goal. And you see that on the board game side of things all the time, like IDW and CMON. They do these monster board games. But look at all the stuff that's done that they just have for the campaign video. I mean, the game is done on launch, and with companies like CMON, they literally have those games sitting in a warehouse somewhere. They just want that Kickstarter money, so they can seed the next thing. And
sure.
That's not
use that as part of the marketing arm. Is what Kickstarter is basically a marketing campaign for them at that point.
That's not unlike what Boom's doing with that Keanu Reeves Berserker book. I mean, that book's going to be coming out in the next couple months. It's being offered through the regular channels, but these collected editions are being offered through the Kickstarter. So.
Yep. Yeah. So that's definitely the direction that we want to go in. But what we don't want to do with these early campaigns is, ship late and piss off the backers that we hope to be customers.
Well, constant updates goes a long way toward assuaging the fears of backers and.
Sure.
And I think it being available on social media and responding to people that, because I get a lot of people just send me DMs on through Twitter, and, I hit them up immediately. And I try to respond. The same thing, the ones that come through the comments on the, the Door Kickers page. And then once Sidekick, I'm not running the Peregrine campaign. That's Optimus over at Graded 0.5. So I'm not on that part of it, but I try to be responsive to everybody who comes in, especially when they say they're a fan of Door Kickers, or, hey, I bought Door Kickers. I just, even the people who just post the pictures on Twitter that say that they got their copy, I always try to put a comment on those just to acknowledge, because if somebody's going to post that they, post a picture of your book on their social media, then that deserves respect.
You need, since this is a satire parody kind of story here, you need another tier on here, Scott.
Okay.
Duncan. You need another tier for 8 extra pages, backup story. Hear me out on this one. Sidekickers Island.
Sidekickers Island. You're not the first person to make the Sidekickers joke. But you're the first one that suggested it needs to be a separate story, though we do have a stretch goal for extra story pages if we can really kind of get this thing going.
Well, I think I've exhausted everything I can ask about this thing, and I appreciate both of you being on the show here tonight. This looks like a fun project. This is the kind of thing, I wouldn't be able to write this and put it out, but back when I was in high school and I had my Mighty Men and Monster Makers and my Champions RPG, this is what would have resulted from a good Saturday night stay up all night-a-thon. I'd produce this many unique characters rolled up and sketched out.
Well, the last thing I'd just like to emphasize before we sign off here is that I know I speak for Duncan when I say this, that if you look at the quality of the book from, if you got Door Kickers, you see the quality of that. You look at the art that we show off here. I mean, we are presenting a product that is as professional, as well done as anything in the mainstream, and better, I think, than a lot of the things in the mainstream. We're using professional level folks at every stage in the creative process. Based on my read of things, I'm asking questions as a writer that I don't think half of the current Marvel and DC writers are asking. So I just hope that people will come in and check it out.
Sounds great. Everybody in the chat, we appreciate you being here watching the show tonight. For those who went out and backed Sidekick Island, definitely appreciate that. You make me look good by doing that. Makes other people want to come on the show and try to repeat that. If you remember seeing these earlier, I just want to let people in the chat know that if you want one of these, a self-addressed stamped envelope to Critical Blast at 1097 Prestwick Drive, Belleville, Illinois 62221, and we will throw 2 of these in an envelope so that you can have one and give one to a friend. Duncan, it looks like Scott finally had that call he was worried about because he's bailed.
Yeah, he bailed on us. Well, thanks for having both. We really appreciate it.
We're glad to have you here, and we'll have you again. Maybe as you get closer to fulfilling, we'll try to give it another extra push at the end. And
that'd be great.
For your other projects.
If you want to rope Perch into some type of industry talk show, let me know and I'll be there.
I think that'd be great. We have Perch occasionally show up on our every other Saturday, the LCS guys show. We have local comic shop owners from around the country gather together and just kind of, it started out, how are you surviving while everybody's shut down? And it's gone on to be, complaining about Diamond and what's selling and what's not and who's getting screwed over by the industry. But yeah, an inside baseball with you and Perch, I think would be an excellent listen. So I'll approach him on that and see if he wants to get with you, and I could help mediate that. What he'll do is he'll just say, yeah, I'll have Duncan on my show, and then I'm out of it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll be the 3 of us. Well, thank you very much again. We really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for listening and for those 2 backers we got during the show. Really appreciate that. Right. Have a good night, everybody.
Duncan. We'll talk to you later. Good night.
Take care, RJ.
Hi. Thanks for stopping by for another Critical Blast video. The internet is a big place, and we know there are lots of other places you could be other than here, and we appreciate you being here immensely. If you enjoyed this kind of content, we hope you'll return for more. If you click the subscribe button, you'll get a little notification of when we produce new video content. If you would like to help the channel out, there are many ways to do so. Just visiting our main hub, criticalblast.com, will do wonders. But if you're more of a show me the merchandise type of person, there are links in the description of this video to our t-shirt shop, as well as links to Amazon for the books we publish under the Critical Blast Publishing imprint, including the urban fantasy anthology Gods and Services and the YA superhero novel Bulletproof by Stephen J. Mitchell. Thanks again for visiting this video. We hope you had a